kind of about...
I'm rolling.
All right, but it might take a couple of things. I'm just going to say it and see what sort of happens after I've tweaked myself.
Yeah. So essentially, what's of most concern is the power imbalance in this situation.
So I think what has inhibited our action previously and what's concerned us the most now is his... No, it's not right.
Hang on, guys, out there. I can
We can hear them. Okay.
All good?
We're on.
What is it that stops women from complaining in these circumstances, do you think?
I think in our case, it's their star power, it's their influence that makes us fearful, makes us feel as though our voices won't be heard. Short enough?
With that?
Too short? No.
Maybe even just something like, obviously, he's a big star, he has clout. We wouldn't be listened to, or we would think we'd be listened to.
Yeah, and I think before you said that you felt that...
Okay.
Okay.
I guess we all felt that his star power and his influence was more valuable and more important than us.
Perfect.
Craig, this episode pretty much represents hypocrisy and shows how common backstage culture and behaviour was used, or how they tried to use it to find you guilty. Does that ring true to you?
Well, certainly the hypocrisy, you've hit the nail on the head there. There was plenty of it, and a little bit of hypocrisy, well weaponised. You're in a world of hurt.
You had 2 initial charges laid against you regarding that's C3, yet it was turned into 6. I suppose the phrase "making it up as you go along" rings true. It's very much what we're about to talk about. Could you see that? How did that happen? How did that play out, going from 2 to 6?
Well, again, as we discussed previously, and I think you nailed it when you said it seems like it's an attempt by the police, the prosecution, to just load up as many charges as possible. And hopefully we'll get one to stick. But Michael, this particular allegation here, it stemmed from C3 claiming that I sat on a lap.
Yep.
So let's just pause there for a minute. We've talked about backstage culture. We've heard from prosecution witnesses saying that we would sit on each other's lap, hit each other's bottoms, we'd lounge on each other, lounging on each other, and so on and so on and so on. I don't recall sitting on a lap to this day, but and I'll say this again, I think I may have mentioned it to you before, I actually said in court, look, I don't remember doing it, but I probably did.
Yeah.
Because that's the sort of thing we all did. But on top of that, she claimed that I did these over-exaggerated sort of kisses on her neck as well. Now, if I just jump forward to actually addressing this in court, and I can't mention the names of the people who appeared in closed court, but the individual talking about these so-called neck kisses actually played them out. And they were very big, exaggerated, like vampire kisses.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, if that's in fact what I did, there's no sexual intent in it, I can tell you. This was also something that this particular individual did to other people. I don't know if I've shared with you photographs of her giving these vampire kisses. But anyway, getting back to your question about the layering up of charges, so suddenly the lap sit became common assault.
Yep.
The vampire kiss, there were 2 on that, 2 on something else. So again, these other charges were built onto this initial complaint.
Yeah.
I say complaint, initial allegation, because of course she made no complaint to anyone at the Rocky Horror Show at the time. Again.
And I suppose you're charged with sitting on someone's lap, yet there's a picture of her sitting on your lap. You could have charged her. We've already talked about this, but I think we should revisit it. I suppose it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah, well, or in the case of this cast with a little rewriting of history, what's not good for the goose seems to be okay for the gander, or vice versa. And listen, the photograph you're referring to, it was taken in my dressing room. I think we may have been doing a radio interview or something at the time, or maybe it was a quick taped interview for God knows what, I can't remember. But we're all in my dressing room. There was no director to insist that my friend or my former friend or someone I thought was my friend, no one directed her to sit on or straddle my thigh, as you see in the shot. No one insisted she be there. It wasn't choreographed. She plonked herself down of her own volition quite happily. So happily, in fact, at the end, after we'd taken our photos and things, or during this, having a few still photos taken, she joked, and again, this could not be, an individual was asked about this in court and couldn't deny it. A joke was made, I better not stay here too long, I might leave a snail trail. Better not stay here too long, I might leave a snail trail. Now people will say that's a pretty off-coloured joke, but I didn't take offence at the time. I knew she was kidding and all the rest of it. Straddling my thigh.
Yep.
What isn't good for the goose seems to be perfectly okay for the gander.
Sitting and straddling, doesn't straddling sound more sexual than sitting?
Doesn't it though?
I mean, it's almost like, you say to your kid, go sit on Santa's lap. You wouldn't say go straddle Santa's lap.
That's right. It's a little bit like holding a banana. We've talked about this before. And thrusting a banana. Thank God it wasn't a watermelon.
So you're trying to defend yourself, I suppose, with something you can't recall. That must be hard as well. Again, it's almost like the unknown. Again, you could have sat on her leg twice. She could have sat on your leg. It's almost like, how can you think of that one moment that she hasn't got evidence of? Here, you've got a picture of her doing it to you.
I know. Do you know, I had people say to me, if you can't remember it, you should have just said it didn't happen. But again, me being me, I was honest and said, look, I probably did. I know I sat on, let's call this fellow Chris. I know I sat on Chris's lap a lot of times. I did a jokey ventriloquist thing on his lap. I probably did sit on a lap. But again, it gets back to intent.
Yeah.
Was I going to sit on her lap with the intent to make her feel uncomfortable or to put it on her? Hell no.
Magistrate Belinda Wallington, in her comments, talks about the law rewarding a sex offender for their self-absorption in their sexual interactions, can only see what he desires. Bloody stupid thing to say when you weren't found guilty after being, a sex offender.
It's so wrong, and I think that's why so many legal professionals Vanessa and I have spoken to in the subsequent years are so appalled by her rulings and commentary. But also bear in mind that this particular individual who claims that I sat on a lap and gave these exaggerated kisses to, this individual who I won't name and I can't name, C3 in court, admits under oath that she never ever felt any sexual or romantic vibe from me throughout the entire run of the show. So when Wallington's talking about rewarded for his sexual behaviour, and in particular with this person herself has said she never sensed it was sexual.
You were also charged with a 1 second closed mouth kiss. This all came about because of a dressing room feud.
The dressing room feud, yes. For context, let me just take you back in time. Yes, to 19, no, we go a bit forward to 2014 when the show is in Perth. So we're 2 cities. We've just completed Brisbane, we're now in Perth. The vibe's good, the reviews were great for Brizzy, great.
Yep.
I hear some commotion in the theatre one day. I don't think anything of it. You know, it's a time for technical rehearsals and all the rest of it. The executive producer comes to my room and she looks completely beside herself. And she said that she's just had Christy ranting and raving in the dressing room because Ms. Whelan-Brown has gone down and raised bloody hell because she feels that has been given a better dressing room. A better dressing room.
Pretty petty.
Right? What am I going to do? Says the executive producer. She said, it's the ranting, it's her words, not mine. It's like the ranting of a mad woman. Later that day, the company manager comes up and goes, you've probably heard about. I said, yeah, is this the dressing room thing with Whelan-Brown? Yeah, what do we do? I said, listen, it's kind of beyond my pay grade, but, you know, I don't know, do you need to change the dressing rooms or whatever? That was the commencement of Whelan-Brown's targeted bullying of this girl.
Yeah.
What's hugely alarming about the whole thing, we spoke earlier about, you know, withholding information can be as powerful as, if not more ruinous than an outright fabrication.
And you can understand, look, I would be the same. I just need to get through this. I don't want to, and I suppose you feel a bit isolated as well.
Well, I felt completely on.
That's the thing, you weren't aware.
Friend in the cast.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting along with Chrissy. Part of it was they were playing us off against each other.
Yeah.
She was the biggest theatre star. I was, bigger in television, so they were using me more in publicity. What was going on there? What was the understudies doing?
This dressing room feud, it wasn't done and dusted in a day. It just set the tone for the rest of the tour. So right to the very final days of the tour, those women did not get on, did not speak really. Now, I was friendly with all of them.
Yeah.
And certainly with C3. This 1 second closed mouth kiss in the dressing room, I don't deny doing that, never did. But what's interesting is that description, that wasn't given by me. C3 described the kiss in those terms. If you'd asked me, I would have said, yeah, I went in and I kissed her. End of story. But when C3 was questioned on the nature of the kiss, what sort of kiss was it? How did it feel? She said, well, it was just a 1 second closed mouth kiss. Her words, not mine, and I was charged with it.
So at the end of the day, you came in to try and smooth it over, because at the end of the day, there's beefs in offices everywhere. Every workplace, there's some type of communication breakdown, feuds, just like that. But in an office, I suppose you can hole yourself away in your office or your cube or your office space.
A little cubicle or something, yeah.
When it comes to theatre, you've got to smooth it up, because you're working this far away from people. You've got to work with them. That must be hard when there's that tension line, within. You've taken it upon yourself to go there and try and smooth it out, which you didn't have to do. It comes back and bites you on the arse.
You're right on all counts.
Which I think is a management's decision that should have been.
Totally. Look, I shouldn't have been trying to massage the warring factions, as it were. My thing was, I just wanted the company to get on stage every night, entertain the audience, and have a good time together. And It was soul-destroying to hear. Like for me, I think we've spoken about this before, Michael. You know, I'm that guy, I couldn't wait to get out on stage each and every night. To hear a friend, a castmate, someone at least who I thought was a mate, who we certainly, for anyone looking in, looked like we got on very well, me and C3. But to hear her say, when talk turned to the possibility of the show returning the following year, because of, you know, popular demand, public demand as it were, to hear her say, I would never come back if you know who's doing it, I was devastated to hear that, because as the first understudy said in a text message to me when, you know, she was letting me know that she was itching to come back and rejoin the show in 2015, and she was saying, you know, not many of the old cast are coming back yet, but we'll see. Anyway, hopefully this time it'll be the joyous, wonderful, happy experience it should have been first time round.
Yeah.
I've always wanted, whether it's Dr. Blake, whether it's Grease, whether it's whatever, I always want it to be a joyous experience for everybody. The fact that it wasn't for C3 because of the relentless bullying from another castmate, dare I say it, a female castmate, dare I say it, as was revealed in court, not yours truly.
Yeah.
I was devastated. I remember talking to Vanessa about it.
You mentioned it was revealed in court, but this feud was never reported in the press, surprise, surprise, mainly because that would have completely fucked their narrative. There was no mention of bullying behaviour. Both weren't talking to each other, but then blamed you for the bullying. So I suppose the bully was Christine Whelan-Brown. Let's put it out there. Sure and certain.
Well, it was, and there's no ifs or buts about it. This, just by the way, you mentioned this thing about, again, I'm laughing because if you read it in a script, I'd be saying to the scriptwriter, the audience won't buy this bit here, where like a sorcerer, like the Pied Piper, I, in between being the leading man, doing the publicity, doing the meets and greets, dealing with audiences, somehow, magically, I'm not even aware of how I could have done this, but I made them all hate each other.
And then, you know, the rest of the time in Melbourne, it was only a few weeks after that, it was survival. You'd come in, you were like, every day was, what the fuck's been said? I knew things had been said about me, but I didn't know what. Now, I still, when I ask despite everything we've discussed, they don't tell me what was said about me, or but I knew he'd managed to tarnish my reputation somehow, and all he told me is that he said she's and she'll never work again, and she'll never work for GFO.
Pig. And it sounds like he was saying this about everybody, to everyone else. It was his way of sort of dividing and conquering.
Think about that.
Yeah.
It's convenient, but it's a contrivance. It's an absolute nonsense. Quite the contrary. When the girls came in to call one of the other ones a bitch, I let them vent in my dressing room or at the doorway of my dressing room. I'd crack a gag, see you out on stage. The notion that I would be magically somehow making them hate each other is laughable.
Can you explain why that was? You weren't trusting each other anymore. Was that because of the things he was saying?
Absolutely. So there was really, I started to become increasingly paranoid and distrusting of particular cast members because we were hearing sometimes first-hand, sometimes second-hand information that people were saying unkind things about us, and that was coming from Craig. So, for instance, when ever an understudy would go on for their role, he was like, this person thinks you're going to steal their role. Oh, this person's shit. And then like, oh, I'm so glad that you're going on as, like, I'm so glad you're going on as Magenta because Erica's shit, those sorts of things. And he was feeding me and other cast members that same little thing. And of course, when that other actress would come back, he'd be in their ear going...
So it was very much a divide and conquer approach.
Very, very much. And, you know, I started noticing in Melbourne that
I'll just get you to say it in your own words. Divide and conquer might not be, but if you could describe this strategy that he was using to stop you women talking to each other, how would you describe it?
He was wanting to alienate us. Like there was a particular like person that I noticed was suddenly becoming completely alienated from the whole group, and I didn't trust her, and that was Christy. And I've worked with Christy before. We've been friends, and I started getting increasingly paranoid that she was saying things about me behind my back, because I'd been told that she was saying things about other people and that she was bad news.
Craig, the incredible thing here is also, just staying on the bully, she goes online to be an advocate to stand up to bullies.
Yeah.
It's like a double down.
Yeah, that's pretty extraordinary. Speaks volumes, doesn't it? I'm not sure if any of the women from that production of the Rocky Horror Show gave her the thumbs up on that post, now I think of it.
It's what Magistrate Belinda Wallington said in her rulings of this. In the strange circumstances of the Rocky Horror Show behaviour, it was possibly behaviour that was generally accepted in the course of everyday life. Was a witness to this incident and said he did not think much of it at the time. Taking the surrounding circumstances into account, I find the Crown has not negated on the high criminal standard the possibility of lawful excuse for this behaviour. Not guilty on all charges.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? Accepting that the world that was backstage on the Rocky Horror Show, and none of this behaviour, and I'm paraphrasing of course, and none of this behaviour was offensive. And yet, here we are in 2026, and I'm still having to fight my way out of it.
So in essence, had the media reported on this very quote in the magistrate's ruling, it would have made them look stupid in their original reporting. I'm told that some of these journalists actually knew that these accusations were suspect at best.
And I think what is so troubling, Michael, certainly for me, is that very early on I had a person say to me that they heard from a journalist about the vagina kissing thing. That it was outrageous and no one really believed it. That they heard about a vagina touch that we'll talk more about down the track, that was scrawled in the air, but didn't really believe it. Now this is someone who was, and I won't say who it was because I don't want to get them bombarded with hate. Well, I know that they didn't believe all that was being said, but made for a gripping story, didn't it? And it made for high-rating television, and here we are, 8 years down the track, still talking about it. They knew what they were doing.
There's a real theme to Magistrate Belinda Wallington's, comments throughout this. Like there was a constant unwillingness to show the accusers in a bad light, do you think? Even though she ruled on her decisions, it's almost like she ruled on it and then all of a sudden gave you a sucker punch after it.
Oh, without question. I'm still bruised from it. Yeah. And again, if we think about those times, those heady days, I'm big enough to not appreciate, but understand, sickeningly, but I understand exactly what she did. And it's not fair and it's not right.
She muddied the waters.
Deliberately.
This was the same person, who tried to obscure evidence about the ankle tickle you were charged with. That's not being brave or honest, is it?
That certainly is not.
Why did you think she did that?
I have all sorts of theories as to why they set about doing what they did. Let me just say that in a perfect world, and we don't live in a perfect world, but if I tickled your ankle, Michael, and you didn't like it, in the moment you could say, hey Craig, when I'm concentrating on that line of dialogue, you can crack a gag anywhere else in the show, but can you not do it there? Because I always feel like I'm going to forget my line. Oh, no worries. Done and dusted. I mean, I'm using that may sound like a flippant sort of example, but actually it isn't. Because I thought the friendships were so good, and we've heard from prosecution witnesses to talk about what we did backstage. At any point, if I'd legitimately done something that upset you, in the moment, you could say, hey Craig, when you did that vampire thing on my neck, that felt kind of weird. Oh, I'm so sorry. Then you wouldn't do it again. But that's not what any of them did. They waited all those years, and you can speculate as to why. The Weinstein thing blows up and so on and so forth. I'm doing Rocky Horror Show again and they're not. Dr. Blake has yet again been the most popular domestically produced drama on Australian television. Rather than saying in the moment, hey, when you crack that joke in my ear on stage, it makes me forget the words to the song. In the moment, we're all friends. But no, that's not how it played out.
Just imagine if that ankle tickle got over the line, you actually, you went to jail. You'd be too bloody frightened to tell any of the other inmates. Oh, what are you in here for? Oh, I tickled an ankle.
Can you imagine? And you? Oh, I held up 3 major banks over the course of 48 hours and would have got away with it too if I didn't get a flat tyre in the getaway car.
It seems that the hashtag #MeToo movement caused the DPP's inconsistency in decision making. It made it more or less eroded their decision making. The prosecutors, need to dig deep to see whether there's sufficient evidence of prosecution for charges to be laid. But again, on this occasion, on this separate issue, again, they just didn't do their job.
No, they didn't. They didn't.
Not understanding context, because without context, the truth can be manipulated and twisted to suit the narrative. And when a closed court order is in place, how can the full story actually come out? I mean, even trying to obtain a closed court document or material is a mindfuck even for a journalist.
Oh, absolutely. It would be easier to track down and capture the dodo bird. It is damn near impossible. And then the question has to be asked. In a case where, look, and I don't want to sound hateful or bitter, because I'm not. Bitterness and hate will kill you. But in a case where workmates, people you thought were your friends, when there's evidence to not suggest, but evidence that shows that there's been exaggeration and fabrication, and the person's acquitted, you would think, wouldn't you, that, and I understand why closed court exists. In my case, really, and it's a grey area, legal professionals will tell you, but in my case, Magistrate Wallington, in terms of submissions, for example, are made available to the press, so they're made public. The only caveat is that the names be withheld.
I mean, should people with untrialled allegations be protected by the courts? I mean, these people walk away knowing exactly the objective they achieved is safe.
That's a really good point to raise. I think the big thing for me is if you go to the press and you are named and you're interviewed and you are, for want of a better word, rehearsed to get enough material together for that thing that's going to ultimately be broadcast and whatever, you're immediately sailing into some disputed waters, aren't you? Because you don't have to be, as we, I think, talked about, you don't have to be Einstein when court proceedings start. You don't have to be Einstein. I'm not just talking about people within the industry. I'm just talking about Joe and Martha Punter out there reading the newspapers and stuff. You don't have to be Einstein to work out who these people must be in court. So that opens up a raft of really interesting questions and I guess challenges for lawmakers about, hang on a second, we probably need to revisit this whole area of it, of the criminal courts and possibly make some changes.
Closed court orders are in place to avoid undue stress or embarrassment to the witness or the complainant. But what about the distress it caused you?